A couple of weeks have passed since the super cold weather, and it's time to take another look at all of the broadleaf evergreens because there have been some changes since I last gave an update, mostly for the worst. But this is the one success story out of all of them, I think, and that is Elysium parviflorum. Now, at the bottom, there are a few interior leaves that turn brown, and a little bit of scorch on certain exposed areas. But on the whole, I'd say I was very impressed and surprised by the performance of the Elysium in that weather. And I would definitely recommend it. I got this from wilsonbrothersgardens.com, and they still have them. So what an impressive broadleaf evergreen. It did better than a lot of hollies, which really surprised me. Here's the Hong Kong rose, Rhodolea henryi. And in general, I was reading online about broadleaf evergreen winter freeze damage, and it said if they drop leaves, that means the stem may still be alive, since the chemical functionality that causes a tree to sever the connection to a leaf and let it fall is a sign of life. But if it holds the dead leaves, maybe that means the whole stem is dead. And these stems are kind of flimsy, as if there's been some serious tissue damage, and you can see hardly any of the leaves have fallen off on the ground. So I'm guessing the Hong Kong rose is dead, which is not surprising given the temperatures. The temperatures dropped well below its tolerance level, so unfortunately Rhodolea did not make it. This is the Centennial Girl Holly, and you can see it has dropped all of its leaves, and the branches have some green on them here and there, which makes me think the tree is still alive, except could have been severely damaged at the very top. So I'm not going to be removing this anytime soon. I want to see it re-leaf in the spring. So this is a contrast to the Rhodolea, where this tree did manage to drop its leaves, which gives hope. Ironically, even though it looks way worse, that could be a sign that the branches themselves are still alive. This is the English laurel, Prunus laurocerasus, and I see lots of English laurel around here. It's a common hedge near houses. The leaves are still on this laurel, and the stem looks kind of green. So that goes against what I just said about live stems dropping leaves. So maybe it wasn't damaged enough for the leaves to drop yet. Maybe just enough for them to turn brown. We'll see. Here's the Turnstroemia gymnanthera. A lot of the leaves fell. A few are still on. But it was definitely impacted. Here's my little Prague viburnum. A few leaves have also fallen. Some still attached. And here's the Berberis replicata. With all of these broadleaf evergreens, I'm going to take a wait-and-see approach to see what reblooms in the springtime. This Elaeagnus dropped most of its leaves, so I'm hoping that's a good sign. But it looks nothing like it did before the cold. This Pyracantha hasn't dropped any of its leaves, and I was reading online that they are susceptible to freezing weather, so this Pyracantha might be a loss. Similar to the Pyracantha, the Akuba hasn't dropped anything, and it looks completely dead. The Pieris is a little brown, but I'm guessing it's going to be just fine. Plenty of green there on the underside. And the rhododendron, same story. I think it'll be okay. It's not a broadleaf evergreen, but one person in the comments asked about the Chinese hemlock, and I just wanted to show you it came through just fine. Not a single brown needle as a result of the cold weather on the Chinese hemlock. So it appears to be just as hardy as our native Canadian hemlock. The Sarcococca ruscifolia sweet box appears to be a total loss. And next to that, the Mahonia belii. It might have died too. The Chindo viburnum has dropped a lot of leaves, but the stems feel kind of mushy, so I don't know how much hope I should have that the Chindo viburnum could come back. The Lauropetalum hasn't really dropped any leaves either, and looks totally brown. So I'm not sure how to interpret that either. Sweet Bay Magnolia, still looking good. I guess I'm a little bit surprised by that too. So thumbs up for the Sweet Bay Magnolia. It survived a really exceptionally cold weather event without very much leaf damage. A little browning here and there, but nothing major. The mountain laurel did not suffer any negative consequences from the extreme cold, although there appeared to be some other blight issues affecting it, probably fungus related. I think I mentioned before that the problem with mountain laurel is not the cold, it's the warm and the wet of the summertime. The Urea japonica is not looking as good as I thought it had done in the beginning. It's pretty olive, although there's still green underneath. So the stems look green. Not giving up on that, but it wasn't quite as untouched as I first thought. And next to that, the Trocodendron aurelioides. I think this one falls under the camp of dead at the branch level. Not dropping any leaves because of that. We'll see. I'm not going to get rid of it, obviously, because I want to see what these buds at the end here will do in springtime, but it hasn't dropped anything. The hybrid osmanthus has dropped most of its leaves, so I'm taking that as a good sign. I'm expecting this to leaf back out in the springtime. And the Liberty holly ended up dropping a lot of its leaves, and the stems don't feel that bad, so I'm a little bit more positive on Liberty holly. I'm betting this is going to re-leaf when the weather warms up. Checking back on the Edith Bogue Southern Magnolia, just a little browning here and there on some leaves, but overall, really good. The Nellie Stevens had a little bit of freeze damage on some of the interior leaves, but overall looks a lot better than most of the other broadleaf evergreens. So thumbs up for Nellie Stevens, being able to come away with minimal damage. The Japanese camellia has not really dropped any leaves, which is a potentially bad sign. We'll have to wait and see. And the hybrid camellia Sasanqua ended up dropping all of its leaves to the ground, which I'm taking as a good sign. This is the Carolina laurel, looking better than most, although a lot of the lower leaves did turn brown. Important reminder about the Carolina laurel, I was reading that the leaves are toxic, and when they're rotting they become more toxic, so word of caution there, but that's a lot of green on the Carolina laurel after such freezing weather. Pretty good. This is perhaps the biggest disappointment since I last checked in, the southern wax myrtle. At first I thought it came through with flying colors, and now I see that's not the case. Everything has turned brown, and when I check on the leaves here, they're still somewhat attached. Some are falling off. Not really any green anywhere on it. It's all turned brown. A few leaves are dropping. So we'll have to wait and see what ultimately happens to the southern wax myrtle. But it's not as hardy as I first thought. It just took a while for the damage to show up. This dragon lady holly ended up dropping every single leaf, which I'm taking as a very good sign, because that probably means the branches are still alive for the most part. So we'll wait and see. This Elaeagnus did not drop the leaves, which is probably a bad sign. So I'm not sure what to make of Elaeagnus yet. And next to that, the mountain pepper, Drymus lanceolata, probably dead. Eucalyptus neglecta, not looking good. And Eucalyptus pauciflora, also totally brown. Next to that I had a diamond spire gardenia, which still has some green on it, amazingly. I'm guessing it made it. So that's pretty impressive for a gardenia. I was surprised, considering all the other plants that suffered worse damage. The diamond spire gardenia, somewhat good. I mean, it's brown on this side. That was the most exposed side. The less exposed side, not that bad. The Indian hawthorn has not really dropped any leaves. I'm guessing that's a bad sign. And the Distilium has also not dropped any leaves. Probably a bad sign as well.